Hi folks, welcome to your cheese and wine tasting kit from Smash Grapes. We're not going to tell you which cheese goes with which wine because the reality is all cheese makes wine taste great. That combination of fat and salt really bring out all the flavours. Coming up, we've got our 6 drink-along videos that give you a little bit more information on all the wines in the kit. Enjoy. Here we have the Calasari Vinul Veri, which means summer wine.
Summer wine.
I mean, excuse my pronunciation of Romanian, but yeah, summer wine it says.
It's April. No, yeah. It's not April. Is it April? Oh, shit.
It might not be April when people are watching this, Sam.
Start again.
No, that's fine, it's fine. Right, so, look, Calasari, you know, this is what other people might know. We've stocked Umbrella, we've stocked the Solivari, same winemaker. Doesn't name a grape on here, just says Vinul Veri.
Yeah, that's right. Same winemaker that we always go to for fantastic quality Romanian wine. Cremel Racas, founded by Englishman Philip Cox and his wife Elvira, who's Romanian. Fantastic operation, doing great quality international varieties, which I'm sure you'll have already come across, your Sauvignons, your Pinot Noirs, etc. This is a blend. It's called Vinul Veri. They put it together as a fantastic summer sipper. It's made of Riesling. It's made of French grape that turns up in all sorts of different wines as a blend that you don't need to worry about, and it's also made up of another Romanian grape that nobody needs to worry about. But it's a blend of all sorts of bits and bobs here. They're pulling together international favourites, French unknown, Romanian unknown, but really with just one aim, and that's to make a fantastic summer sipping wine. And wowzers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's racy, it's sharp. I mean, it's only 10.5% as well, so I think it's got that lightness to it that, you know when the sun's shining and you're sat there in the garden and the chat's flowing, it's quite easy to open that second bottle, which I think at a 10.5 is quite easy.
Why not?
This wine actually features in our cheese kit as well, a tasting kit. So, you know, what makes this wine like really good with that kind of food?
Yeah, so it's high acid. We're talking this will have been grown in the coldest parts of Romania, you know, to maintain the acidity in the white wine. That's why the alcohol's low as well, because alcohol needs yeast needs sugar to make alcohol, so it's kept it quite low. Kind of think like how Prosecco is grown in the most northern snowy parts of Italy, and so the alcohol level is low because there's not enough sugar from the ripeness. But that acidity is fantastic for cheese. We tend to think, when we think about cheese, we tend to think of port or big heavy red wines, but cheese is really high in acid. It's high in acid and high in salt. And so that pairs really nicely. The third thing that it's high in is fat, right? You know, cheeses is fatty. Digging into a cheese board, got a nice rich cheddar, maybe you've got some brie or whatever in there. It's not long before it's going to become claggy. Yeah, it's a claggy meal. So high acid to clean your palate, clean that fat out. These types of wines, for me, are actually more likely to be my go-to on a cheese board.
I mean, yeah, I can already straight away see why they've gone summer sipper, and I get why, you know, cheese is a good pair with it. But, you know, if I'm cooking a proper dinner, this is quite a light white. You know, what am I thinking? I'm probably thinking like pasta, white cheeses, those kind of things. Like, what am I eating this with?
Yeah, do you know what? This isn't necessarily what I would call a strictly food wine. I think the meals that we could pair this with are fairly few and far between. These guys have done a fantastic job, as they always do, of making a wine, particularly for this purpose, for sipping on the patio. 10.5%, get it super chilled to bring the acidity down if it's a bit too harsh for you. Get it super chilled, pour it liberally, enjoy. If you were going to have it with dinner, then yeah, you know, maybe a creamy pasta, maybe a mac and cheese, something like that. Again, where the fat is high and you need that acidity to sort of clean the palate and refresh you. But there's no doubt about it, this is summer vibes.
And we're talking, you know, you said about get it super chilled. We get asked all the time, ice in wine. Yes, no, what's best practice?
Whatever feels best for you at the end of the day. Listen, if you put 1 cube of ice in a large glass of wine, it is going to melt, it's going to dilute the wine, it's going to be a bit watery. Like it, knock yourself out, but that's not really for me. But if I'm going to put ice in a wine, I want loads in there, so I'm going to fill the glass, loads and loads of ice, just like they do with gin and tonics nowadays, loads and loads of ice in a big glass. Get the wine in there so the wine's super chilled, but the ice doesn't melt before you've got to the bottom of the glass. That's what you want to do.
More ice, less melt. Ice, ice, baby.
Cheers. Cheers.
This is the Montrachet Rosé from the Pays d'Oc in France. Now, what's Villers-Vienne, what's that?
Villers-Vienne, absolutely. Old vine is what that means. I'll come to that in a second. But yeah, we're in the Pays d'Oc in France, and we've got ourselves a rosé. Pays d'Oc is like a big region, if you like. It's actually a collective of regions with a more wider name. So it's not given a specific regionality for various laws and regulations that are frankly quite boring. But this comes actually down from the south, sort of Languedoc-Roussillon part of the Pays d'Oc in the south of France. And it's a classic sort of pink blend for that part of the world that we might be more familiar with from Provence.
Yeah, and I think as soon as I poured this out and, in the glass, I think this is what a lot of people would go, oh, love a blush. It is what people would call blushy. Blushy doesn't mean anything though, does it?
No, blush doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really mean anything in terms of the colour. It doesn't mean anything in terms of the grapes. But yeah, we love a pale pink at the moment. We love that Provence style. What does that mean? Well, Provence is a specific region. It's like right round Saint-Tropez and that posh area on the Riviera where all the celebrities have their villas and some of them their vineyards. It's always a blend, Provence, of generally 3 grape varieties: Grenache, Cinsault, and Syrah, or Shiraz as we know it. It's pretty much always those 3. There's a couple of other bits that tend to go in there as well, like Rollet, which is also known as Vermentino, but generally it's those 3. They are great as a pale pink rosé. They make fantastic rosé, there's lots of great flavour, but you don't have to buy it from Provence, and heaven forbid, please don't buy it from Provence with a celebrity's name on the side.
Or anything relating to an angel. That's
that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This is really common in all parts of the south of France, and it's great in all parts of the south of France. You do not need to go to those sort of big curvy bottles with pop stars' names written on the side or angels written on the side to get this type of flavour. We have got loads, haven't we, of pale pink rosé fans who have converted to this, and it's great value for money, and they absolutely love it.
Sent an order out this week for 48 bottles of this stuff.
Lovely, lovely. So Villers-Vienne,
yes.
Old vines.
Old vine.
Old vines, what does that mean? Well, it's pretty common, actually, to be written on the side of some French wines and also some Spanish wines. Old vines, well, vines generally can go from sort of 10, 15, 20 years to start making grapes, all the way up to 60, 80 and 100 years old. And those guys tend to be called the old ones. There's no strict rule about what you can call old, but they are generally the old ones. They grow less grapes as they get older, so there's less fruit on the vine, yes, less yield for the producer, but the flavour is far more concentrated.
Yeah, I mean, like, bold choice throwing in a rosé into this, our, you might be watching this as part of our cheese and wine kit. A lot of people think rosé is just, it's there for the masses. It's there for, like, real winemaking goes into making rosés, right?
Yeah, it's not a secondary thing by any force. It's not like, oh shit, we've got some grapes left over, maybe we'll make some rosé. These guys are passionate about making good rosé, and they're passionate about the winemaking that goes around it. Rosé is a fantastic alternative, to picking a specific red or white if you want a great all-rounder, if you've got spicy food, if you've got like a variety of food on the table and you're just not sure what to go with, rosé is the grape for that.
Sandwich Van's just turned up playing the A-Team theme tune, so you might hear that in the background. But no, that's not just the music we have to spur us on. Yeah, I mean, look, rosé is a great all-rounder, and say this one, super pale, really refreshing. Clearly, bit of sunshine, some friends round. This is a great wine for that. But what else? What else is rosé? An absolute champion with?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Get it super chilled in the sun. As soon as that sun does come out, we're going to enjoy it. But for me, yeah, spicy Asian food. If you're doing a stir fry tonight, that sort of thing, really, really good. I like it with nibbles, with cheeses. If you're having one of those nights where you're not quite sure what to have for dinner, so you grab a bit of ham and a bit of cheese and a bit of whatever's knocking about. Really, really good for that sort of thing.
I mean, love it. I'm converted. Rosé every day.
Cheers.
This is the Umbrella Sauvignon Blanc from Villa Timosuli in Romania.
Yes, another white wine, or another wine from Crème Racasse in Romania, our absolute favourites. Founded by Englishman Philip Cox and a few other English families. His wife Elvira from Romania got together in 1988, founded this winery in Romania, and now are a massive international operation. I mean, they export to everyone everywhere. Massive deal, big guys.
I mean, this is without shadow of a doubt our best-selling wine. You know, as a Sauv Blanc, people thinking, you know, Marlborough, you know, New Zealand, even, you know, France. This is a great Sauvignon.
It is great, and these guys do international varieties really, really well. So when I say international varieties, you know, those famous ones, your Sauvignon, your Chardonnay, your Pinot Noir, your Merlot. Why do they do it really well? Well, Romania, funnily enough, as a country, has got a very, very similar climate and landscape to central France. You know, it's fairly landlocked. There's no coastal vineyards here. It's all inland. Similar sort of level from the equator as France. It can replicate all of those conditions. What it has, which say France doesn't, and even New Zealand doesn't, is the complete landlocked nature of it. There are no vineyards near the sea. What does that mean? Well, it means consistency, because being near the sea is where weather is changeable. So you might get a storm come in, weird wet weather, and so these guys can replicate the conditions that our favourite international varieties like Sauvignon Blanc enjoy, but without the risk of things going wrong because of a bit of a weather change. And it's those weather changes that drive up the prices of things like Bordeaux, which can often be Sauvignon Blanc, or New Zealand Sauvignon.
I mean, like, you know, when I'm drinking this, it's got all those characteristics that people who, you know, love a Marlborough Sauv will enjoy. You know, the kind of racy, kind of nice high acid. But there's like a real Moorishness. I want to drink more of it. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, so that's all about balance between acidity and sugar. Now, we might think, hang on a minute, sugar? This isn't a sweet wine, is it? No, not at all. This is bone dry. It's as dry as you get, just like your favourite Sauvignon Blanc. But what this wine does fantastically, and it's what the New Zealanders do really, really well, because they've got plenty of sunshine to ripen up those grapes. When they're ripened, this acidity comes down a touch, but they still maintain it, and the sugar level in that grape goes up. And it's just enough to take the edge off the acidity, so that it's not like you're dipping soda and lime all night, and just add a little bit of sugar, and it's the sugar that is the Moorish nature. It's not making the wine sweet, it's making you want to come back for more and more.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very Moorish. Would you know, keep sipping this.
Keep sipping.
I mean, it's a great wine with something like a cheese. It's in our new cheese kit this year. But what else? You know, what would you be reaching for this bottle for?
Yep. So Sauvignon Blanc is great with milder cheeses. Cheese is cheese. All cheese is high in acid, and so this is really nice pairing, just like this white wine is. But alternatively to that, salads, vegetable dishes, that sort of thing. It's really good with goat's cheese, which I know isn't in our kit, but you know, if you're having something with goat's cheese, it's a really nice pairing.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things with cheese, just to talk about that for a second, it's quite salty, isn't it? You know, cheese naturally. So, like, this is a good wine for salt. Like,
whether you're having the cheese kit or the charcuterie kit, you know, that salty nature is going to actually reduce the impact of the acid on your tongue, increase the fruity flavours, and that's why something as simple as a bowl of salted popcorn or salted crisps with something like a Sauvignon Blanc is going to get rid of that high acid nature and bring through like the tropical fruits and all the stuff we love.
I mean, look, I can see why this is our bestseller. It's a fantastic Sauv, so cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so here we have the Beppe Morchetta Bianco. This is Vino d'Italy, but it's from the Veneto region in northern Italy.
Northern Italy, absolutely. Yeah. Veneto, so right at the top, move across to the east or the right, if you like. Big region, mostly famous nowadays for Prosecco. Prosecco has dominated that region. We're in the coldest parts of Italy here, where white wine does particularly well, high acid white wines. This is a blend. It's a blend of Garganega and Chardonnay, and this really is a nice example of, you know, we've talked about field blends, particularly from France and Spain in the past. If you're a Smash Grapes, familiar, you'll have heard of talked about those. The Italians do field blends. They do that sort of thing, but they don't tend to call them field blends. They will name the grapes, but what we're talking about here is grapes that just grow naturally in this part of the world. They throw them together without too much worry about the fact that it is Chardonnay or that it is Garganega, just to produce a wine that's typical of the region. But what are the grapes? Well, we know what Chardonnay is, right? You know, love it or hate it, Chardonnay is grown all over the world. Super great all-rounder. If you don't like Chardonnay, then you've just not tried the right one, because Chardonnay is super versatile. You grow it in northern Italy, It's crisp and refreshing and light, like a Pinot Grigio or a Sauvignon. You grow it in southern Australia, it's big and it's blousy and it's fruity. There's a whole spectrum there. Garganega, another one that maybe people haven't heard of, and it is the main grape variety in the more famous white wine, Soave. Soave is actually a region, again, up in Veneto in the north of Italy. All Soave is made from Garganega, and so Soave is funny really, it's sort of fallen out of favour. It was quite popular in the UK in the 80s and seen as a sort of sophisticated choice, and then it sort of disappeared on our supermarket shelves, but it's great, and they have a rich history of quality winemaking.
My eyes are getting pulled here. The wife's a big fan of Soave. She's behind the camera at the minute, so just come round and here you go. Soave, bit of Chardonnay. What are you thinking? Your face will tell it all because we haven't got a mic on you. So happy, nice, yes, enjoy, good. So yes, like you say, Soave, big in the 80s. Something people might be more familiar with than Garganega, but this is a very good, just proper, really nice white wine. I don't think it's too offensive in any direction. When are you reaching for this kind of bottle?
It is a great all-rounder. So Soave, as a white wine, even though we're talking about northern Italy, we're talking high acid, there's a richness to it. And actually, if you want to delve into Soave a bit further, this isn't Soave, it's not from Soave, but if you want to delve into Garganega and Soave more, they get rich and they get nutty and there's all sorts of cool stuff going on. This is a little bit of that. Chardonnay complements that really well, and I think what you've got here is a nice combination between two grapes together that make a rich wine. But actually, really, the focus here is refreshing, clean, and easy drinking, and it makes a fantastic all-rounder. Just like we've talked in the past with field blends, they're, like you say, they're not two in one direction. They're not super acidic, they're not super abrasive, but equally they're not big and heavy or anything like that. They just sit really nicely in the middle. Fantastic all-rounders. What would I put it with? Again, like I say for field blends, parties, get-togethers, a dinner party where you've got lots of different things on the table. You want to make sure everybody's happy. Something like this is great.
Yeah, I mean, that whole kind of, Chardonnay. No, I'm not into it. We've had a lot of people who, completely anti-Chardonnay try this wine and say, God, it's amazing. Now, obviously, blending is part of that, but like you said, it's maybe if you're not into Chardonnay, it's just you've not found the right one for you because of that versatility of it.
So the thing about Chardonnay is that probably the most famous Chardonnays that we see or come into contact with, certainly on the supermarket shelves, are generally from those big brands, your Australians, that sort of thing, Yellow Kangaroo on the side, that sort of stuff. We're talking super hot country, and we're talking a shitload of oak thrown in, not always in the best practice as well. They're big, they're blousy, they're a punch in the face of white wine, which not everybody's into. That is not Chardonnay. The best Chardonnays, in my opinion, of the world are more subtle than that. Chardonnay grown in very northern parts of France, like Chablis. Chablis is one of the few posh wine regions where I think, yes, they are absolutely nailing it. It's light, it's refreshing, it's almost steely in character from that cold climate. Chardonnay will do whatever the weather dictates, and again, with this one, we're in the northern part of Italy, so that cooler weather actually creates a really fantastic, refreshing white wine. So if you're a Sauvignon lover, Pinot lover, a refreshing white wine lover, and you've said no to Chardonnay, this one's going to be the one that converts you.
I mean, I'm all in. Book me a flight, let's get over there.
Cheers.
Here we have the Entero Macabeo from Mantrailer, and this is an old vine, organic, unfiltered.
Unfiltered, yeah. Unfiltered, but surprisingly clear. We were surprised when we first picked this up, because unfiltered wines, well, what does that mean? Well, once all the wine process is done, and you've got the yeast is dead, it's eaten all the sugar and turned it into alcohol and done its job, we tend to filter it off, because we don't want it knocking about in there, mostly for visual appearance. They've left this unfiltered. I can't really explain why, but even though it's unfiltered, it's super clear in the glass.
And that filtering can be where a wine becomes vegan or not vegan, because the agent they use to filter it can be derived from animals.
Derived from animals, absolutely. So this is unfiltered, but it is fantastically clear. It hasn't changed it at all, but in not filtering it, they've left the yeast in, and that's where we get the richer, creamier flavours from the yeast, which you should get in this wine. So back to the grape though, Macabeo. Macabeo, or Voucher as it's known in the Rioja region, goes into lots of white Rioja, but Macabeo, probably one of the most famous white grapes in Spain, certainly to the Spanish, if not us. Most widely planted is a different one, Aren, but Macabeo is probably the Spanishes. Spain's most popular white grape. Goes into making cava, their sparkling wine, and it's kind of on a similar plane to Chardonnay. Don't let that put you off. Chardonnay's great, but Macabeo is also. So it's versatile. It can grow all over Spain, in the hottest parts, in the coldest parts. Manchuela, south of Spain, southeast. So we're talking hot here. We're getting closer to the equator. But Manchuela is very high up on a plateau, and it has lots of altitude, and altitude cools those grapes down. And what altitude also creates is a technical word alert, diurnal change. Diurnal change.
Break it down. What is a diurnal change?
The diurnal change is super important for growing particularly white wines, where you want the acidity to be nice and high and refreshing, but you still want the ripeness to develop fruity flavours. What it means is difference in temperature between night and day. So in the daytime, it's super, super hot, lots of sunshine, lots of ripeness for the grapes, so that they don't become overripe and too sugary. At night time, boom, the temperature drops down and it's super cold. Altitude is the only way to achieve this, being up a mountain essentially, and it's really, really important. It's what the Chileans do fantastically, developing these white wines that you're like, wow, this is really refreshing. That's the acidity from the night time, but it's also, there's flavour. There's loads of flavours coming through, and that's from the ripeness in the day.
Yeah, I mean, there is that kind of creamy butteriness to it, and you said this is from the yeast being left in. So in France, you would see that as lees aging, and in Spain, sobre lias is how you can see it on the bottle. But yeah, it kind of like, it's got like a buttery kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, it's light in this. There's no doubt about it. Like, lees aging can be done in a heavier way. This is just a touch of it, but it adds a richness to the wine. But the grape naturally, Macabeo, very much like Chardonnay, naturally has weight to it. So we're not just talking about fresh, limey, lemony flavours, but there's tropical fruits and a richness to it, which makes it sort of, I guess, like one level above your average patio white wine.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you've said there, you know, it could be slightly better than, you know, a patio wine's got a bit more going on. Like, when are you reaching for this bottle?
Well, I still think it's a summer sipper. I think it's a great one. It is super refreshing. That diurnal change has kept the acidity high, and it is really nice and refreshing. But you know, if you were having, I don't know, like buffet food or barbecue where there's nibbles and stuff like that, and so there's lots of different flavours coming together, or if you were sort of having maybe cheese, but you wanted white wine as well as red as an option, this will do the job. Yeah,
I mean, look, I really like it, and I know that sometimes unfiltered can be, you know, very left field, but this is just a great wine.
Yeah, really, it's great quality winemaking. Don't let unfiltered put you off. It's as crystal clear as you like. There's no risks here or anything like that, and there's a richness to it as a result.
Absolutely. Right. Cheers. Here we've got the Montrachet Viognier, another Vieille Vin, old vine, and this is from the Pays d'Oc, again in France.
Absolutely. So Pays d'Oc, a big old region, or sort of collection of regions that can be broken down into lots of different smaller regions. This guy, Montrachet, they come from the Languedoc-Roussillon. Montrachet, fantastic winemaker that we work with a lot from all of their wines, really, their reds, their whites, and their rosé, that are fantastic representations of what can be more premium varieties from other areas. We've got Viognier here. Not a great variety we're super familiar with. Viognier is a Côte de Rhône white grape. So if you know the Côte de Rhône, down the middle of France, just before you get down to Saint-Tropez and the Riviera and Provence and all that sort of area, Rhône River. It's famous for those big reds, so your Chateauneuf de Pape, your Côte de Rhônes, those sort of very popular and expensive Shirazes and that sort of thing. They do fantastic white wine as well, and those white wines are always made from Viognier and also Marsanne and Roussanne, who are sort of blending white grapes that do really well with Viognier that you don't hear about a huge amount. You do pay a lot for those. We're talking just down the road here. We're just moving slightly down the road to Languedoc, and you've got a fantastic representation of Viognier. It's big, it's rich. Viognier is a grape that is perfect for surviving the harsh heat of the south of France. It has a really thick skin to protect itself from the harsh heat of the south of France. And that thick skin sort of translates into quite a waxy, almost thick honey-like flavour in the wine.
Yeah, there's a bit of like an oily vibe to it. Now, you know, we're not all about giving tasting notes and you should taste this, you should pick that up, but there's definite like kind of a honey vibe to it for sure. I mean, 13% as well. This is probably this is quite a big white wine. You know, if it's not a wishy-washy kind of Pinot Grigio, for example.
For sure, this is one of the great varieties that single-handedly on its own will create a heavy-bodied white wine. You know, so generally, big-bodied white wine needs maybe a bit of oak, a bit of lees aging to back up the white wine itself. But Viognier, this has got no oak, no lees aging, but on its own, it's robust. It can go to 13% alcohol because it can put up with the sun, and that's because of the thick skin. And you're right, the thick skin creates an oily texture, a thickness to it. It's no longer just liquid. There's something else, like you say, something more oily to it.
Obviously, Viognier, like you said, it's not something we're particularly familiar with. You know, is this very much just seen in France? Can you get this elsewhere? You know, like it's the first time I've had a Viognier.
Yeah, so Viognier is very much just a France thing, but South Africans are pretty good at specifically Côte de Rhône varietals. The South Africans will do Côte de Rhône varietals really, really well. So will the Australians. It's worth looking out for. There's no doubt those guys will probably throw in a bit of oak at some point if you are into those bigger, richer wines. Honey, for sure, one of the flavours. The other one for me when it comes to Viognier is always that sort of tangy orange nature. Puts it out on its own, for sure. It's not your usual citrusy, tropical fruits. There's a honey thing, there's an orange thing going on there. It's rich, it's thick. It's its own character altogether, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you know, this is a big white wine, and we've had a few of those through, you know, through various tastings before. When am I reaching for this bottle? You know, what am I eating with it? What occasions is this the one to go for?
Yeah, it's a funny one, really. I don't think there's a specific dish that I would say this Viognier is the one for it. But I think if you're bringing spice in, like Asian spice, that sort of thing, I think the honey and orange goes really, really well with it. I think pork, you know, or chicken, but maybe richer than a salad, maybe roasted or something, is going to go really nicely. Yeah, Viognier, it's sort of on its own, and I think so spiciness, Asian spices or Indian spices specifically, with that orangey nature, they go really well.
Very good. I mean, stir fry for me tonight, so
sure.
I'll grab myself a bottle.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching our drink along videos. We hope you enjoyed the wine. Don't forget to come back and spend your £10 voucher on your favourite.